Daehyun was having the worst day of his life, and he did not even know it, yet the alarm clock in his tiny room on Harmony 7 had broken again, so he woke up late. The coffee machine in the mess hall was making that weird buzzing sound that meant it would explode soon if someone did not fix it, and now the air recycler in Section 12 was acting up, making the whole outer ring smell like old socks mixed with engine fuel. He grabbed his tool belt and trudged through the curved corridors of the space station. Harmony 7 was not a big place. Just 3 rings connected by spokes like a giant wheel spinning slowly in the darkness between stars. Most of the 500 people who lived here were scientists or traders or diplomats doing important work. Daehyun was just the guy who fixed things when they broke. The air recycler was tucked away in a maintenance shaft so narrow he had to crawl on his hands and knees to reach it. His jumpsuit was already dirty from fixing a water pump that morning, and now it was getting dirtier. The recycler was making a grinding noise that sounded like a sick animal. Daehyun pulled out his sonic wrench and started taking apart the filter housing. The parts were old, and some of them were held together with tape and hope. The whole station was like that, built cheap and expected to last forever. He had been working here for 3 years, fixing the same things over and over again. Sometimes he wondered what it would be like to be important, to have people listen when he talked, to make decisions that mattered. But then he would remember that he was just a maintenance worker from a small town on Earth who had never been anything special. His job was to keep the toilets flushing and the air clean, and that was enough. The explosion changed everything. The whole station shook like a giant had grabbed it and was shaking it like a toy. Daehyun hit his head on the low ceiling of the maintenance shaft and saw stars that had nothing to do with being in space. The lights went out for a few seconds, then came back on, but they were red now. Emergency lights that meant something very bad was happening. He crawled out of the shaft as fast as he could. His tool belt caught on a pipe, and he had to stop to untangle it. By the time he got to his feet, the station was shaking again. People were running past him in the corridor, some of them bleeding, most of them scared. The intercom crackled to life. Commander Roberts' voice was tight with fear. All personnel report to emergency stations. This is not a drill, I repeat, this is not a drill. Daehyun had never heard the commander sound scared before. Roberts was a tough woman who had served in the Earth Navy before coming to Harmony 7. She did not scare easily. He ran toward the command center, pushing through crowds of panicking people. The corridors were full of smoke and the smell of burning metal. Someone had left a data pad on the floor, and it was cracked and sparking. He stepped over it and kept running. When he reached the command center, everything was chaos. Control panels were flashing red warning lights. Half the screens were dead or showing static. People were shouting orders, and no one was listening. The big window that looked out into space showed something that made Daehyun's stomach drop. There was a ship out there, a ship that looked like nothing humans had ever built. It was long and twisted like a piece of metal that had been heated and bent by invisible hands. Its surface was covered in what looked like thorns or spikes, and it was moving toward the station with slow purpose. But that was not the strangest thing. The strangest thing was the 4 figures standing in the middle of the command center. 3 of them looked like they had crawled out of a nightmare. They were tall and thin with gray skin that looked wet under the lights. They had too many arms, 4 each, and those arms ended in hands with too many fingers. Their faces were long and narrow with black eyes that reflected the red emergency lights like a cat's. The 4th figure was different. She was shorter than the gray ones, and her skin was not gray, but blue, a soft blue like the color of water in a swimming pool. But it was not just blue, it was glowing light moved under her skin in patterns like slow lightning. Her hair was long and dark, and it seemed to float around her head like she was underwater. Her eyes were large and bright, and when she looked at Daehyun across the crowded room, he felt something electric run down his spine. She was beautiful in a way that made his chest hurt. Commander Roberts was standing near the main control panel. Her uniform was torn, and there was blood on her face. One of the gray aliens was pointing something at her that looked like a weapon, but wrong, like someone had tried to build a gun from memory and had gotten the details mixed up. Your species is weak, the gray alien said. Its voice was like metal scraping against stone. You will surrender this station, or we will take it by force. The blue-skinned girl stepped forward, and Daehyun could see that she was afraid. Her glow flickered like a candle in the wind. She was trying to be brave, but she was scared, please, she said, and her voice was like music, like wind chimes in a soft breeze. They are not our enemies. They helped my ship when we crashed Hyan. Did not understand what was happening, but he understood enough. The gray aliens were the bad guys. The girl was trying to protect the humans, and no one else seemed to know what to do. The gray alien who had been talking turned toward the girl, and Daehyun saw something in its black eyes that made his blood turn cold. Anger mixed with something worse, something that enjoyed causing pain. Silence. The alien hissed, "You speak out of turn." What happened next made Daehyun forget about being scared or being unimportant or being just a maintenance worker. The gray alien raised one of its 4 hands and hit the girl across the face so hard that she flew across the room and crashed into a bank of computer. Sparks flew from the broken screens. The girl hit the floor and did not get up right away. When she finally struggled to sit up, there was blood running from her nose, and her glow was flickering like a dying light bulb. Something caught fire in Daehyun's chest, something hot and angry and completely unfamiliar. He had never been in a fight in his life. He had never even raised his voice at anyone. He was the guy who said sorry when other people bumped into him. But watching this beautiful alien girl get hurt for trying to protect humans made him forget about being afraid. Girl looked up and her eyes found his across the room. She was hurt and scared, but there was something else in her expression. Something like hope. "Be brave, human," she whispered. Her voice was so soft he almost did not hear it over the alarms and the shouting. "Show them what your kind is really made of." Daehyun looked down at his tool belt. His plasma cutter was hanging there next to his sonic wrench and his emergency beacon. It was not much of a weapon, just a tool for cutting through metal when bolts were too corroded to remove, but it was better than nothing. His hands were shaking as he unclipped it. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. But the girl was watching him and he could not let her down. He could not let any of them down, so Daehyun grabbed the plasma cutter, took a deep breath, and jumped into the most important moment of his life. The gray aliens turned toward him as he charged across the command center. The one who had hit the girl raised its weapon, and Daehyun had just enough time to think that this was probably going to hurt a lot. Then everything exploded into light and sound and the smell of burning air, and he discovered what it really meant to be brave. The plasma cutter felt like lightning in Daehyun's hands as he jumped toward the gray aliens. The weapon hummed to life, sending a bright blue beam across the command center. The smell of ozone filled the air and everyone started shouting at once, but Daehyun was not really thinking about fighting. He was thinking about the blue-skinned girl who was still on the floor bleeding. He changed direction at the last second, and instead of attacking the aliens, he grabbed her hand and pulled her behind the nearest control panel. Energy bolts flew over their heads, turning the air into crackling electricity. The gray aliens were shooting at everything that moved, and the humans were diving for cover behind consoles and chairs. Commander Roberts was yelling orders, but no one could hear her over the sound of weapons fire. "You are insane," the girl breathed, but she was smiling. Her blue glow was brighter now that she was not so scared. Up close, Daehyun could see that the light under her skin moved in patterns like tiny rivers of starlight. Her blood was definitely blue, and it sparkled like glitter. "Yeah, probably," Daehyun said, checking his plasma cutter to make sure it was still working. "But I have been fixing things my whole life. Maybe it's time I broke something." The girl laughed, and the sound was like silver bells. It made Daehyun feel warm, despite the fact that they were hiding from alien weapons fire. "My name is Hana," she said. "It means bright star in my language. What is your name?" "Brave human Daehyun," he replied. "Just Daehyun, and I am not really brave. I am just angry." Hana looked at him with those large, bright eyes. "Sometimes being angry is the same as being brave." The gray aliens were advancing across the command center. They moved wrong, like they had too many joints in places where joints should not be. Their weapons made a whining sound when they charged up for another shot. Daehyun knew the station better than anyone. He had crawled through every maintenance tunnel and fixed every broken pipe. He knew shortcuts that most people did not even know existed. "This way," he whispered to Hannah and led her toward a small access hatch hidden behind a bank of monitors. They crawled through a tunnel that was barely wide enough for one person. The gray aliens were too big to follow them, and their weapons could not fit through the opening. Daehyun could hear them shouting in their metal, scraping voices, but the sounds got fainter as he and Hannah crawled deeper into the Station's guts. The tunnel led to a junction box where three different passages met. Daehyun stopped to catch his breath and check that Hannah was okay. Her glow was steady now, and the cut on her face had stopped bleeding. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Her voice echoed strangely in the narrow space. "Because hitting someone smaller than you is wrong," Daehyun said. "Doesn't not matter what planet you are from." Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You are not like other humans I have met." "How many humans have you met?" "Not many," she admitted. "My people are traders. We travel between stars selling things. But we try not to get involved in other species' problems." "Well," Daehyun said, "now you are involved, whether you want to be or not." They continued crawling until they reached another access hatch. This one opened into the secondary command center where a few other humans had gathered. There was Jinwoo from security, a thin, nervous man who jumped at every sound. Sora from engineering, a tough woman with short hair and oil stains on her clothes, and old Kyung-ho who ran the cafeteria and complained about everything but always made sure everyone was fed. They all stared when Daehyun and Hannah crawled out of the tunnel. "That is an alien," Jinwoo said, stating the obvious. "Her name is Hannah," Daehyun replied, "and she is on our side." "How do we know that?" Sora asked suspiciously. "Because the gray ones hit her for defending us," Daehyun said, "and because she could have run away, but she stayed to help." Kyung-ho was staring at Hannah's blue glow with fascination. "I've never seen anything like that," he said. "Are you some kind of living light bulb?" Nari," Hannah said patiently. "My people have evolved to produce bioluminescence. It helps us communicate in the dark spaces between stars." "That is amazing," Sora said. Her suspicion was replaced by curiosity. "How does it work?" "It is complicated," Hannah replied. "But right now we have bigger problems. The gray ones are called Vec. They are not just taking over your station. They are looking for something my father hid before he died." "What kind of something?" Jinwoo asked. "The kind of something that could destroy worlds," Hannah said quietly. The room went silent. Everyone stared at her. "My father was not just a traitor," Hannah continued. "He was a keeper of old knowledge, and he was carrying something very dangerous. The Vec have been hunting him across the galaxy. When his ship crashed here, they finally caught up." "Where is this dangerous thing now?" Sora asked. "Hidden somewhere on the station," Hannah said. "My father scattered clues before the Vec captured him, but I am the only one who knows how to read them. That is why they need humans alive." Kyung-ho realized they need help searching. "Exactly," Hannah said. "The Vec are not good at understanding other species. They think all problems can be solved with violence. But finding my father's hiding place requires understanding how he thought, and he was very clever." Daehyun was starting to understand this was bigger than just aliens taking over the station. This was about something that could threaten entire worlds, and somehow a maintenance worker from Earth was right in the middle of it. "What do we do?" he asked. Hannah reached into a pocket in her strange clothes and pulled out a small crystal. It was the same blue color as her skin, and it pulsed with its own light. "We find it before they do," she said. "This is the key my father gave me before he died, but using it means going to the most dangerous place on the station." "Where?" Sora asked. "The observation deck," Hannah replied. "The place with the big windows that look out into space. If the Vec hit those windows with their weapons, everyone inside will die." "Of course." Daehyun thought the most important thing would be hidden in the most dangerous place. That was just his luck. But as he looked around at the small group of humans who were depending on him, and at Hannah with her brave smile and her glowing skin, he realized something. He was not just a maintenance worker anymore. He was part of something important, something that could change everything, and maybe that was worth the risk. Jinwoo was checking his security equipment. Sora was looking at station schematics on a portable screen. Kyung-ho was muttering about how he was too old for this kind of excitement, but they were all still there. None of them had run away. "We need a plan," Daehyun said. Hannah nodded. "We need to get to the observation deck without the Vec seeing us, and we need to do it fast. They are getting impatient." "How long do we have?" Jinwoo asked. "Not long," Hannah said. "When Vec get frustrated, they start breaking things. And this station has a lot of things that should not be broken." Daehyun looked at his plasma cutter, then at the faces of his friends, then at Hannah, who was trusting him to help save not just the station, but possibly entire worlds. "Okay," he said, "let us go break into the most dangerous place on the station." "What could possibly go wrong?" Everyone stared at him. "That was a joke," he added. Nobody laughed. Hannah's real name was something that sounded like music mixed with starlight, but it was too long and complicated for human tongues to say properly. She told them it meant bright star who guides lost travelers home in her language her father had given her that name because she was born during a solar storm that lit up the sky of their home world, but her father Teo was not just any ordinary Nari trader, he was something much more dangerous and much more important. We used to be warriors. Hannah explained as they sat in the engineering section hiding from Vec patrols long ago. Before my people became merchants and diplomats, we were the guardians of the galaxy. We protected smaller species from those who would harm the Shenwuwas, keeping watch at the door while Sora worked on disabling the security cameras. The last thing they needed was for the Vec to track their movements through the station's surveillance system. What changed? King Ho asked. Why did your people stop being warriors? Because war always costs more than it gives, Hannah said sadly. Even when you win, you lose something important. My ancestors decided it was better to build bridges than to build weapons, but they kept some of the old weapons just in case Daehyun guessed. Hannah nodded, her blue glow dimmed with shame. My father was one of the few who remembered the old ways. He was a keeper of the ancient knowledge, and he was carrying something that should have stayed buried on our dead worlds, the heart of storms. She whispered like she was afraid to say it out loud. It sounds scary. Sora said it as Hannah replied. My ancestors used it to split asteroids when they needed to clear space lanes for ships. They used it to crack open dead planets and release the water trapped inside so new colonies could grow, but in the wrong hands it could do much worse. How much worse? Jinwoo asked from his position by the door. It could crack living planets like eggs. Hannah said it could boil away atmospheres, it could turn suns into bombs that would destroy entire star systems. Everyone was quiet for a moment. The only sound was the hum of the station's life support systems and the distant echo of Vec voices in the corridors. The Vec have been hunting the heart for decades. Hannah continued. They followed my father across half the galaxy. When his ship crashed here, they thought they had finally won. But my father was clever. He knew they would torture him for the location, so he hid it somewhere they would never think to look. Where? Daehyun asked. Everywhere, Hannah smiled. For the first time since she had started talking about her father, he broke the hiding place into pieces and scattered clues throughout the station. Each clue leads to the next one like a puzzle. But you have to understand how he thought to solve it, and the Vec do not understand anything except violence. That is why they need us alive. Kyung Ho realized they need humans to help them search, because they cannot figure out the puzzle themselves. But there was something else, something Hannah was not telling them. Daehyun could see it in the way her glow flickered when she talked about her father. Sora noticed it too. Your father is dead, Sora said gently. Hannah's glow went almost completely dark. The Vec killed him an hour after they boarded. They thought if they hurt him enough he would tell them where the heart was hidden, but he never told them. And now they are stuck. She pulled the crystal from her pocket again. It pulsed with the same rhythm as her heartbeat. He gave this to me before he died, she whispered. He said it was not just a clue, it was a key, and the lock it opens is in the place where humans go to see the stars. The observation deck, Daehyun said. Hannah nodded, but it is not just hidden there. The observation deck is not what it seems. My father said the humans built it over something much older, something that was already here when they built the station. That is impossible, Jinwoo said. This station was constructed in empty space. There was nothing here before we arrived. Are you sure about that? Hannah Sora was frowning as she thought. I helped build this station, she said slowly. We did find some strange readings when we were setting up the foundation, but the engineers said it was just background radiation from the nearby nebula. What if it was not? Hannah asked. What if it was something my people left here long ago? A beacon or a way station from the time when we were guardians. She held up the crystal, and it pulsed brighter. The light seemed to be responding to something. This key has been in my family for generations, she said. It only works for the children of those who built the old network, but I have never used it before. I do not know what will happen when I do. Only one way to find out, Daehyun said, but first we have to get there, Jinwoo pointed out. And the Vec are not going to just let us walk through the station. King Ho had been quiet during most of the conversation, but now he spoke up. I can create a distraction, he said. The kitchen has gas lines and electrical systems. If I overload a few things in the right order, I can make a very impressive explosion. Nothing dangerous, just lots of noise and smoke that could work. Sora said if we time it right, we can use the confusion to slip past their patrols. What about you, Daehyun? Asked the old man. It could be dangerous. King Ho shrugged. I have been cooking terrible food for 20 years, he said. If I'm going to die, I might as well do it doing something exciting for once. They spent the next hour planning. Every detail had to be perfect because they would only get one chance. If the Vec caught them before they reached the observation deck, it would all be over. Hannah Sut. Apart from the others staring at the crystal in her hands, Daehyun could see that she was scared not just of the Vec, but of what they might find when she used the Kihei. He said, sitting down beside her. Are you okay? I have never done anything important. Before she said, I am just a trader's daughter. I sell pretty things to rich people on different worlds. I am not a warrior or a guardian or a hero. You stood up to the Vec when they wanted to hurt the humans, Daehyun pointed out. That sounds pretty heroic to me. Was terrified. Hannah admitted. So was I, Daehyun said. But we did it anyway. Maybe that is what being brave really means. Doing the right thing even when you are scared. Hannah looked at him with those large bright eyes. You are very wise for a maintenance worker. I am not wise, Daehyun laughed. I just fix things, and right now we need to fix this situation before it gets worse. Sora finished her work on the security system and gave them a thumbs up. The cameras in the corridor outside were now showing recorded footage from earlier in the day instead of what was actually happening. King Ho checked his watch. Time to go make some noise, he said as the old man left to create his distraction. Daehyun felt the weight of what they were about to do. They were going to walk into the most dangerous place on the station, carrying the key to a weapon that could destroy worlds, and they were doing it because it was the right thing to do. Sometimes Daehyun thought being brave was really inconvenient, but as he looked at Hannah and saw the determination replacing the fear in her glowing eyes, he knew they had no choice. They had to tree. The Heart of Storms was waiting, and so were the Vec. The observation deck was exactly what its name suggested, a giant bubble of transparent aluminum that stuck out from Harmony. 7, like a soap bubble waiting to pop. It was the most beautiful place on the station and the most dangerous one. Good shot from a Vec weapon and everyone inside would be breathing vacuum, but it was also where Teo had hidden the Heart of Storms. King Ho was as good as his word. The explosion in the kitchen section was spectacular. Lights flashed, alarms screamed, and smoke poured into the corridors. The Vec thought the humans were trying to destroy the station and went rushing toward the source of the chaos that gave Daehyun and his team their chance. They moved through the maintenance tunnels like ghosts. Hannah led the way with her crystal glowing softly to light their path. The key seemed to know where it wanted to go, pulling them through passages that Daehyun had never seen before, hidden corridors that Teo must have discovered during his brief time on the station. He was always like this, Hannah whispered as they crawled through a particularly narrow section. Even when I was small, he would hide my birthday presents in impossible places. He said it made finding them more meaningful. Your father sounds like he enjoyed making things complicated, Jinwoo muttered. He said life was too short to be boring, Hannah replied. They were almost to the observation deck when everything went wrong. The tunnel they were following opened into a maintenance shaft that led directly to the observation level, but when Daehyun pushed open the access hatch, he found himself staring into the glowing eyes of a Vec warrior. The alien was waiting for them. Its weapon was already charged and pointed at the opening. Clever little creatures, the Vec hissed. You think you can crawl through walls like insects? But we are not stupid. We know this station has many hidden paths. More Vec emerged from concealment. They had been waiting in the shadows around the observation deck. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Give us the key, little star, the Vec leader said. It was the same one who had hit Hannah in the command center earlier. The one whose voice sounded like breaking glass. Perhaps we will kill you quickly if you cooperate. Never, Hannah said, clutching the crystal tighter. Her blue glow flared brighter, making her look like a small star in the darkness. The Vec leader laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You have spirit. I will enjoy breaking it. Daehyun felt that familiar fire in his chest. Again, the same anger that had made him grab his plasma cutter back in the command center, but this time it was stronger. Because this time he knew what the stakes were. These creatures wanted to use an ancient weapon to destroy entire worlds. They had killed Hannah's father. They were threatening his friends, and they thought humans were weak. Time to prove them wrong. You want her, Daehyun said, stepping between Hannah and the weapons. You go through me, the plasma cutter. In his hand felt steady now, no shaking, no fear, just determination. The Vec leader tilted its head like a curious bird. One human against 5 Vec, you are either very brave or very stupid both. Daehyun admitted, but mostly stupid. The fight lasted exactly 7 seconds. Daehyun managed to cut down 1 Vec with his plasma cutter before the others opened fire. Energy bolts filled the air with crackling lightning. Jinwoo tried to help, but his security stunner was no match for Vec weapons Sora threw. Her wrench hit one of them and actually hit it, but that just made it angry. When the shooting stopped, Daehyun was on the floor, bleeding from several wounds. Jinwoo was unconscious. Sora was holding her arm and swearing in 3 different languages, but though 7 seconds had been enough while the Vec were focused on the fight, Hannah had reached the hidden panel that her father had told her about. It was disguised as part of the observation deck's structural support, but when she pressed the crystal key against it, the metal began to glow. "What are you doing?" the Vec leader demanded, finding the truth. Hannah replied. The panel slid open, revealing a space that should not have existed. It was bigger inside than outside, like someone had folded space itself. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to move and shift in the light from Hannah's crystal. "This is impossible," the Vec leader said. "Technology like this does not exist." "It does now," Hannah said, and pressed the crystal into a socket that perfectly matched its shape. What happened next was beyond anything any of them had expected. The observation deck filled with light, not the harsh light of Vec weapons or the cold light of stars, but warm light like sunlight through water, and the light carried voices, thousands of voices, all singing in harmony. The voices were Nari, but somehow everyone could understand them. They told a story that went back millions of years, a story of a species that had chosen to build instead of destroy, to heal instead of hurt, to guide instead to rule. Images appeared in the light. Nari ships carrying supplies to refugee worlds. Nari engineers teaching primitive species how to purify water and grow food. Nari warriors standing between the weak and those who would prey on them. And there were Vec in the images, young Vec children playing with Nari children, Vec adults working alongside Nari to build great cities on worlds that had been dead rocks before the heart of storms brought them to life. The heart was not a weapon at all, it was a tool of creation. "What is this?" the Vec leader whispered. His voice was smaller. "Now uncertain history," Hannah said. "The real history, the story your people tried to forget." The images showed the truth. The Vec had not always been conquerors. Long ago they had been refugees fleeing from a dying world, poisoned by their own wars. The Nari had found them and used the heart of storms to give them a new home. The heart had cracked their dead planet open and released the clean water trapped beneath. The heart had cleared the toxic atmosphere and made it breathable again. For generations, Vec and Nari had lived in peace, working together, building together. But then something had changed. Fear had crept in, pride had poisoned the relationship. The Vec had begun to see kindness as weakness. They had rewritten their own history, turning their saviors into enemies. "You were refugees," Hannah said to the Vec leader. Her voice was gentle now, not angry. "My people saved you, and these humans who helped me when I crashed, they are doing what my ancestors did. They are being kind to strangers." Some of the Vec soldiers had lowered their weapons. They were staring at the images like they were seeing ghosts of a life they had forgotten. Others looked confused, as if they were trying to remember dreams from childhood. The light was getting brighter now, and the voices were getting louder. They were not just telling the story of the past. They were asking a question about the future. "What will you choose?" they seemed to say. "Will you build, or will you destroy? Will you remember, or will you forget? Will you be what you were meant to be, or will you continue to be what fear has made you?" Daehyun struggled to sit up, despite his wounds. The bleeding had stopped, but everything hurt. He looked at Hannah, who was standing in the center of the light like she belonged there. Her blue glow had synchronized with the ancient beacon, making her look like a living star. "So, what happens now?" he asked. "Now," said a familiar voice, "my daughter decides whether to repeat history or learn from it." Everyone turned toward the voice. A figure stood in the doorway of the observation deck. It looked like an older version of Hannah with the same blue glow, but dimmer, like a candle that was running out of wax. Teo was alive, but barely. Teo looked like he had been through a war and lost. His blue glow was flickering like a dying light. One of his arms hung useless at his side, and there were dark stains on his clothes that might have been blood. He was leaning against the doorframe, like it was the only thing keeping him upright, but he was smiling. Father Hana cried and started to run toward him. Stay where you are, Teo said gently. The beacon is not finished yet, and I do not have much time left. The Vec leader was staring at him with what might have been shock. You are supposed to be dead. We killed you. You hurt me badly, Teo admitted. But you forgot something important about the Nari. We do not die easily, and we do not give up. He stepped into the observation deck, and the ancient beacon responded to his presence. The light grew brighter, and the voices grew clearer. The images in the air became more detailed, showing not just the past, but possibilities for the future. This is what I wanted you to see, Teo said to his daughter. This is why I led them here, why I used the humans as bait. You used us as bait, Jinwoo said. He was awake now and not happy about ID. Trusted you to be what you are. Teo corrected, kind to strangers, brave when it matters. Look what happened. This human, he nodded toward Daehyun, risked his life for my daughter. Without knowing why the others followed him, they chose to help rather than hide. Daehyun was getting tired of people calling him brave. I was just angry, he muttered sometimes. Teo said anger and bravery are the same thing. The beacon was showing new images now, images of what could be human ships working alongside Nari vessels to terraform dead worlds, Vec engineers using their strength to build instead of destroy. Three species learning from each other, creating something better than any of them could make alone. But the images flickered and changed, showing darker possibilities, worlds burning under Vec weapons. The heart of storms used as it was never meant to be. Used fear and hatred spreading across the galaxy like a disease. The choice is yours, Teo said to everyone in the room. But especially to you, daughter. You can give them the heart, and they will use it as a weapon. You can destroy it, and the knowledge dies with me, or you can do what the Nari have always done. You can teach, but who can we trust? Hannah asked. The Vec have forgotten their history. How do we know they can remember? The Vec leader was still staring at the images. His soldiers were arguing among themselves in their harsh language. Some of them wanted to continue the mission and take the heart by force. Others were asking questions about the things they were seeing. What do you think, brave human? Hannah asked, turning to Daehyun. Thought about it. He was just a maintenance worker who fixed broken things, but maybe that was exactly what this situation needed. Someone who understood that some things were worth repairing instead of replacing. I think, he said carefully, that the best way to honor something beautiful is to share it, but only with people who promise to use it to build, not destroy. And you think your species qualifies? The Vec leader asked. His voice was bitter. You humans who fight wars over resources you could share. We are learning, Daehyun replied. This station has people from 12 different countries on Earth, and we all work together. It is not perfect, but it is something. Jinwoo nodded. Despite his injuries, we have problems, but we try to solve them without destroying everything. Sora was still holding her wounded arm, but she managed to smile. We build things together, even when we disagree about how to do it. The beacon pulsed brighter, as if it approved of what it was hearing. Teo was leaning more heavily against the wall. Now his glow was getting dimmer. I do not have long, he said. The Vec did more damage than I can repair, but I want to see what my daughter chooses. Hannah looked at the crystal in her hands, then at the Vec soldiers, then at the humans who had become her friends. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, her glow was steady. I choose to teach, she said. What she did next surprised everyone. Instead of giving the heart to anyone or destroying it, she walked to the beacon and placed her hand on its central control. The ancient mechanism responded to her touch and began uploading its entire database to every computer system on the station. The history, the technology, the philosophy of creation over destruction, all of it became available to anyone willing to learn. The beacon was not just telling its story, now it was sharing its knowledge. Some of the Vec soldiers left immediately. They could not accept what they were seeing, could not believe that their entire worldview was built on lies, but others stayed. Their curiosity was stronger than their fear. The Vec leader, whose name turned out to be Sharp Rock, stood very still for a long time, watching the data stream across the station's displays. Finally, he spoke. My grandfather used to tell stories, he said quietly, stories about a time when our people lived in peace. I thought they were just stories for children. They were memories, Hannah said, real memories passed down through generations. Sharp Rock looked at his remaining soldiers, then at the humans, then at the beacon. You would really share this knowledge With us, after what we have done, knowledge belongs to everyone who will use it wisely. Hannah replied, that is what my father taught Meta-O. Smiled one last time, then he closed his eyes and his glow faded completely. He died peacefully, standing up like the warrior he had always been. The beacon dimmed, but did not go out. It would continue broadcasting its message to anyone who came looking. For it, in the months that followed, ships from dozens of species would arrive at Harmony 7, drawn by the ancient signal, but that was still to come. Right now there was just a small group of beings standing in an observation deck surrounded by stars, learning that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose to trust instead of fear. Daehyun looked at Hana, who was crying blue tears for her father, but smiling through them. Do you think it will work? He asked. I think, she said, that we have to try, and I think that is enough to start with. Outside the transparent walls of the observation deck, the stars seemed brighter somehow, as if the universe itself approved of what had happened here. The heart of storms was no longer hidden, it was shared, and that made all the difference. 3 months after the day that changed everything, Daehyun was still fixing things on Harmony 7, but now he was not alone. The observation deck had become a classroom where humans Nari and Vec learned together. It was not perfect. There were still arguments and misunderstandings, sometimes a homesick Vec would get frustrated and try to start a fight. Sometimes a human would make a joke. That did not translate well and hurt someone's feelings, but they were trying. Hannah had stayed on the station officially as a cultural ambassador, but really because she had found something here that her people's trading ships had never offered. A home where she belonged. She was teaching a mixed class of engineers today, showing them how Nari biotechnology could be combined with human manufacturing techniques. The results were amazing: living metal that could repair itself, computers that grew instead of being built, energy systems that worked like plants, turning starlight into power. Daehyun watched from the doorway as she explained how to calibrate a bio-neural interface. Her blue glow was steady and bright. Now she was happy here, really happy in a way that made his chest feel warm. You are staring again, Sora said, coming up behind him with a cup of coffee that actually tasted good. Kyung-ho had been taking cooking lessons from a Vec who understood spice chemistry. Am I that obvious? Daehyun asked, only to everyone who has eyes. Sora grinned. Her arm had healed perfectly thanks to Nari medical technology. She says you saved her life. I just grabbed her hand. Daehyun protested. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, Sora said seriously, they would not, and that is what makes you special. Not everyone had stayed after the truth came out. Some of the Vex soldiers had left, unable to accept that their entire culture was built on lies and fear. They had taken one of their ships and disappeared into deep space. Sharp Rock said they would probably go back to the Vex home worlds and cause trouble. Some humans had left too, mostly the ones who were scared of aliens or who thought sharing advanced technology was dangerous. They had requested transfers to other stations or ships, but more people had arrived than had left. Scientists and philosophers and ordinary curious beings from dozens of species, all drawn by the beacon that now broadcast openly from Harmony 7. The station had to be expanded twice to hold everyone. Sharp Rock had become an unlikely leader. Among the Vec who stayed, he was learning to build instead of break and discovering that construction was much more satisfying than destruction. His people were good at heavy work and they were helping to add new sections to the station. The best part was watching the children, human children, Nari children, and a few young Vec playing together in the common areas. They did not see differences, they just saw friends. They were growing up thinking it was normal for different species to work together. Commander Roberts had been promoted and given command of the expanded station. She still complained about the paperwork, but Daehyun could tell she was proud of what Harmony 7 had become. Jin Woo had started a security training program that taught conflict resolution instead of combat. He was working with Sharp Rock to develop new techniques for dealing with problems without violence. Kyung-ho was running the expanded food service and loving every minute of it. He had learned to cook dishes from 6 different species and was working on a cookbook that he wanted to publish. And Daehyun was still fixing things, but now he was fixing relationships between species, fixing misunderstandings, fixing the small problems that came up when very different beings tried to live together. Do you ever regret it? Hannah asked him later as they stood in the observation deck watching the stars. She had finished her class and they were alone except for the quiet hum of the beacon regret. What all of it being brave when I asked you to be grabbing the plasma cutter, grabbing my hand. Hyun thought about it. He thought about the scared maintenance worker he had been 3 months ago, the man who kept his head down and never caused trouble, the man who thought he was not important. That person seemed like a stranger now. Best decision I ever made, he said. Even if I did not know your father was watching. Hana laughed, that silver bell sound that always made him smile. He is still watching, you know. Her hand went to the crystal pendant she now wore around her neck. It held a small piece of the beacon, a fragment of her father's legacy, and he likes what he said. The observation deck was different. Now, instead of just being a place to look at stars, it had become a symbol, something that proved very different species could share the same space without fear. The transparent walls that had once seemed fragile now felt strong, protected by the friendship of everyone who gathered here. Sometimes late at night when his shift was over, Daehyun would stand here and think about how one moment of bravery had changed everything. Not just for him, but for everyone. The ripples were still spreading. Ships were leaving Harmony 7, carrying the message to other worlds that cooperation was possible. He was still just a guy who fixed things. But now he was helping to fix something much bigger than broken air recyclers or faulty computers. He was helping to fix the spaces between worlds, the gaps that fear and misunderstanding had created. Sharp Rock joined them at the viewing window. The big Vec moved quietly. For someone his size, beautiful sight, he said in his improving human language, referring